Good morning, everybody. Today is Thursday, October 8th, 2015, and this is Before the First Cup with Jules here on UCY.tv. Happy Thursday, everybody. We're almost there. As a matter of fact, this is going to be Friday for me. I warned you guys last week that I was going to take a couple days off. The kids have off tomorrow and Monday, and we're going to go visit Nana. So I'm going to take a few days off to chill. So for me, it's Friday, but it is really Thursday. It is 52 degrees and partly sunny here in upstate New York. It's not too bad. Nice fall day. Everything is still kind of green. It's very colorful, green and brown and yellows. Typical fall, but not looking forward to it. I saw that it might start to get cool and rainy here, and that's about when the stuff goes south. So where do we leave off yesterday? We took a long, hard look at, actually, we had some issues with the broadcast and how interesting we were dealing with something such as the TPP. Let's hope that doesn't take us out again. We titled the show Silicon Valley, Feds, Internet, UN, and TPP. And yeah, we kind of started with some of the corporations in Silicon Valley working with the federal government, namely Google, Microsoft, and all those guys, of course. And we saw that happen back last year, and they cried the blues over hackers. We had to get them all involved to make it this corporate federal partnership between information sharing and providing cybersecurity on a grand scale. Good old Microsoft Cyber Patrol Center is sitting there waiting already to combat global crime. Then we saw that we talked about the UN stepping in, and the UN really is working on a consortium. And I think that this TPP is going to be the next step of that. They're requiring all kinds of new rules to participate in these global internet transactions, and it was all again in the name of safety. They switched ICANN, the naming convention, over to an international body as well over the last few years, moving that off the mainland also. And really, that's kind of what we illustrated yesterday, is how all these things that really kind of used to be at home have been moved to a new and improved 21st century global scenario, so we can become part of the global community. And we know that that's what they've been planning. Well, they've been working on it. Now, the one story I wanted to do, because yesterday when we lost the connection, and I didn't realize it until the show was over, I was going to re-record that just to tag it on there because it was such a good article. And there is no software that I have on my computer or that I could download, because it would download but it wouldn't install, for me to be able to record this. So it took me hours yesterday screwing with the show to even cut it to be an hour. And I was like, wow, that was pretty amazing. Then it took so much time and effort. It was almost 5 o'clock by the time I got everything fixed to be able to re-air the show at dinner time. So just because of that fact, I am going to read this story. Did the UN really install a global police force at the local level? This came out of Activist Post, but I think it was out of a different publication before that. I've seen it around. Oh, no, it is. It's out of Activist Post. I've seen it around now in a couple different publications over the last few days. But we started speaking about this before I was so rudely interrupted, and I pointed out the fact that where this originally came from, and I did a lot of stories back last summer when this was all going on with the massive police brutality issues that we were having. Back to Ferguson, Michael Brown's parents, they had even gone to the UN complaining about the U.S.'s police brutality issue. And what we started seeing across the board is that when there were too many complaints, and of course it cost taxpayers too much money, or when some smart person got it on their cell phone and it went viral on the internet, the Department of Justice would step in and take over the police department for a while. And of course, it was in the name of, trying to standardize and figure out what's wrong or whatever. But check this out because it's kind of taking another step forward now. Did the UN really install a global police force at the local level? It says while people were I'm looking at my equalizer to make sure this is recording. All right. While people were in a daze of revelry following the lunar eclipse and the Pope's visit, a very important yet overlooked announcement was made by the Department of Justice. Oh, the same ones that took over all of the police brutality cities. Not all of them, but a bunch of them. Albuquerque, New Mexico happened to be one. But I think there was a large number, maybe 20 plus. I had gone over a list one time. There were a lot of cities that were being run by the DOJ. There was a launch of something called the Strong Cities Network to strengthen community resilience against violent extremism. It says that rang the bell to usher in a global, local initiative to ferret out extremism at the local level. Yes, in the United States. Remember, we talked about who's hiding under your bed and in your closet? Yes, ISIS and radicalized teenagers. So look out, people, because they're coming to find them now. Symbolically, it could also signal a turning point when it comes to local authorities and their treatment of residents at large. Wah, 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 wah. We'll see. Indeed, it is a global enmeshment that most Americans are either A, in the total dark about, and yes, they do not see that our sovereignty is being stolen right from underneath our noses as we drink our coffee this morning. They're working on this endlessly, and I'm telling you, it is almost over, guys. If they get this TPP through, and I don't know, friends of mine are saying, no, it'll never pass, but I have such a bad feeling, and I think the vote is tomorrow. They already passed that TPA, which is the Fast Track Authority, so there are no negotiations now, man. They either voted up or they voted down. How funny, though, I see Hillary Clinton come out against it yesterday. I was like, interesting. Though, the Democrats never really wanted it, or did they? I don't know. I just have a really bad feeling. I think this is going to be Slick Willie, slide it right through like a grease pig. And then we got some real problems. All right, so either A, Americans are in the total dark about it, or B, going hysterical over if they understand what's going on. Honestly, either of those reactions is understandable when you start digging into the announcements and its sponsors, only to find the typical convoluted global psychobabble. Yay, what a great expression that signals to the astute, yes, that they are about to lose their rights and be perceived as domestic terrorists. Ding, 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 ding. And this is this Strong Cities Network act that they're working on. But what's so interesting is that all this stuff is being orchestrated so perfectly at the same time. I just saw 2 gun legislation now is getting ready to be packaged up and put through Congress. Of course it is. We had to have a massive shooting in the middle of all of it, too. I don't know. Like I said, the world that we see for 20 years from now, it's going to be a very, 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 very different world from the world we see today. All right. Anyway. So lose their rights and perceived as domestic terrorists. But can anyone really say for sure? Well, of course not. Not when the message is written in newspeak gibberish. Yes. So I don't want to read too much of this, but let's get through to the meat and potatoes because we got some other stuff we're going to look at. So they go through this whole bullet-pointed list, and there's 18 of them or something. And I read these all yesterday. And honestly, I don't know. It almost sounds to me like some person wrote this and just kind of used all kinds of keywords that would make it sound like it was great. But, it could be, this absolutely could be the globalization of local police forces, but sometimes, I don't know. Let's read the bottom. The launch was made following the Leaders Summit on countering ISIL and violent extremism. Well, there we go. A better way to counter terrorism would be to stop funding it, yes, and stopping the Western-backed terrorism on the people as though they are guilty, and that's why these actions should be a big concern, thankfully. The declaration of actions are as clear as mud, and they really are. I mean, I don't feel like going through all this. They just kind of give all this babble about, 21st century, let's all be good neighbors and work in our communities and be local citizens and make sure we spy on each other and call and work together to stay safe. Yeah. So, it's this give it up, tattletale, and don't worry about it because everything will be okay. And don't befriend a tinfoil hat wearing terrorist. It says, while some outlets are reading social cohesion to mean partnering with Muslim fanatics to install Sharia law in the United States, well, I never thought that. A more likely observation is that this initiative deflects from the major unresolved issues of state violence supported in some local law enforcement sectors. And hey, if it stops people from having the shit beaten out of them on a daily basis, I might be all for a reach out program where we have a new friendlier face, but don't be fooled by it. Just be happy you're not bloody anymore. Always be on your guard. If an initiative or the DOJ wanted to make sure violent extremism doesn't happen in communities, it would address the systemic issue first instead of funneling more power in its way, blah, blah. So I don't know. I probably shouldn't have read this. I probably should have left it where it was in the annals of yesterday. All right. But what I did want to talk about today is we're going to dig a little more into the TPP. We've done this quite a number of times, but it really is in front of us now. And what gave me a smile this morning is that RT had released a video yesterday where Igor, good old Igor, we haven't heard from him in a long time. Igor was the correspondent, so I'm almost afraid to try my Skype. Oh, I'm almost afraid. Hold on, I'm logging in here. I am almost afraid to try my Skype. Yesterday I did it, and it locked everything up. But here, we're going to check it out, because I want to hear from Igor, man. Igor was cool. All right, let's hope it rings. Let's hope. It's ringing. Now answer. Don't lock up. Oh, no. Oh, maybe it worked. Am I broadcasting? Okay, well, I think so. All right. Let's see if we can play Igor. TPP copyright file sharing provisions in U.S. law. And this is something that I talked to you guys way long ago about when I first dug into the TPP. Despite all these global trade backdoor butt slaps they have, they're going to use this stuff to come after the alternate media. They're putting big, pointy, bloody teeth into copyright law. And they're going to come after people across international borders. Okay, we talked about the whole .com thing way back when, back in New Zealand. The long arm of the law of the United States reaching in there and going after him for file sharing in another country. That set a lot of precedent. And this is now going to come at us full frontal. And this is why I've been very adamant about trying to keep our bumpers and anything else that we use really as copyright free as possible. Because in the future, I think that they are going to make it a big issue. All right, here we go. TPP copyright file sharing provision copy law.
We still don't know what exactly is in the text of the Trans-Pacific Partnership deal signed with a much fanfare on Monday. Its text will be available for public to see only in a month. But if you think that this new deal is only about trade, you may have to think again. Now, according to numerous leaks which have appeared on the internet describing what the script of the TPP agreement would be about, it will include provisions scrutinizing copyright laws and particularly tougher copyright enforcement. In a nutshell, the countries who are signing up to this deal will have to embrace the already tough U.S. copyright legislation and let those into their legal domains. The TPP will reportedly contain data rights management anti-circumvent provisions which will make it a crime even to tinker with, hack, resell, or reproduce any kind of digital content or number of digital files that you may own.
I'm telling you, this really, and they want to put like huge fines in place. You know how like when you watch a videotape years ago and it would say, you know, the FBI fine for whatever it used to say is the header and $1 million and everything go, well, yeah, right. Okay. They're going to come knocking on my door. They want to make that a reality.
It will also encourage stronger monitoring and policing of digital content, and this will potentially lead, according to several internet activists, to a full-time internet censorship, including blocking and filtering of online content. Even
now, I talked about that yesterday as well. Online content filters that they're actually putting at a country level. I posted all kinds of stuff in the show notes from yesterday. That, you know, when I go off on tangents, I usually find a story to back up what I say. And they did. They had the child porn filter that's already outside of England that is filtering all incoming traffic into the UK for child pornography. Don't think that I'm almost positive it's happening here now. I just know that this DNS not found error that mysteriously appeared one day that I'd never seen before. I mean, I've been in technology for 25 years, guys. Okay. I mean, I've seen as much as you want in the desktop space. I've installed it. I've bought it. This stuff has just been what I've eaten and breathed for all these years. And so this DNS error not found, you know, brand new out of the blue, but it seems to be content that has something controversial in it, anything to do with, you know, alternative media, let's say, especially if it's exposing some sort of corruption. And it's not just on one machine, it's on all of them, and it's on two separate networks. I have two separate incoming lines. So it's not me, you know, for all the times that my friend points at me and goes, man, you must have been the worst tech ever to have all these technical issues. I really do have these technical issues, and they're just out of the blue. Whoops. Everything worked yesterday, and today nothing works at all. Today, actually, knock on wood, it works okay, but all right. So anyway, yes, filtering. You know, it would be easy to put a filter package in and then try to convince people that they were having technical issues. And I think that's what they're doing. It's a psyop here. But in the meantime, Microsoft's Cyber Patrol Center is probably sucking everything you do on the internet down for your dossier.
Minor infractions may become a crime, and some of the leaks have already suggested that the U.S. Will be pushing for the lower criminal threshold, basically making even non-commercial online activities a crime. Now, a group of 16 media companies from all across the world dealing with online files and media sharing, they have filed a letter to trade superiors warning them of possible grave consequences for online freedoms. Now, according to David Christopher from Open Media, one of the companies which sent this letter, even small actions, even minor infractions can now lead to a prison term in the country signing up to the Trans-Pacific Partnership deal.
Even small infractions can lead to a prison term. Yeah, you know, when I first dug into new copyright laws that they were proposing, and of course we can't read any of the text, and I still call bullshit in the fact that Obama's saying that in 30 days they're going to have They're going to have the entire text available in some special room for everybody to read. Because I had then seen something else, that there is context of this agreement that's still going to be private for the next 4 years. And hey, guess what? Something else. It is classified. And really, besides our selected members of the government who are working on negotiations, did you know that corporations actually have more rights? They're in there negotiating the majority of these international trade agreements, and they have more rights than us to see this document, and they are negotiating it in our name. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't trust any corporation to be negotiating in my best interest. How about you? I mean, that's insane. And, you know, people arguing, I don't know how many conversations you've had about this, but I've had quite a few. People arguing with me how it's going to be good for jobs. We'll listen to Obama tell his bullshit story. It's not going to be good for jobs. This is going to be major sound sucking out a window. And, you know, one thing we talked about yesterday was like the World Trade Organization coming at us over this skirmish between Mexico, Canada, and the United States over labeling country of origin laws, right? Canada, Mexico filed suit against us saying, ooh, they were losing revenue because nobody wants to buy Canadian or Mexican beef, boo-hoo. So we want reparations. And the World Trade Organization came back and said, United States, guess what? Your United States law to label country of origin is illegal by international standards. So you better vote to remove it. And they did. So now we don't need to know where our food comes from. But how convenient that happened right on the cusp of them getting ready, 12 countries to ink this deal. Japan, I believe, is one of the countries. Japan has lots of radioactive food that they want to get shipped out. Remember, Japan sued under the same sort of agreement as Canada and Mexico went after the United States. Japan went after South Korea. And there was another country, and I never remember which one it was. But they're trying to force the Pacific Rim countries up there to buy their radioactive food. Nobody wants it. So, hey, we're going to play that game again. Hide the pickle. Hide the pickle. You don't need to know where it comes from. Just eat it and shut up. All right, Igor, let's wrap this up.
Going to have a pretty dramatic effect on how people use the internet. One classic example is, let's say someone posts a holiday video online. They have some music playing in the background. Perhaps that song is copyrighted. Under the TPP, that person could very well be criminalized and actually face criminal sanctions and having a criminal record just for that kind of small-scale copyright infringement.
Another clause of the reported clause of the TPP agreement, which has already sparked a lot of concerns, is regarding the trade secrets obtained using a computer. Now, according to the reported leaks, this would also be criminalized in the new deal, which would make the lives of journalists and whistleblowers investigating corporate wrongdoings virtually impossible. And some believe this may even be used to crack down on those journalists and whistleblowers. But before all this is set in stone,
I want to stop here because he doesn't really explain it very well, but I dug into that yesterday. I was like, what on earth is Igor talking about? In his cute broken English, what he was referring to is there is a law in the books, and I don't know if I still have the research up or not. There's actually a computer law that is on the books that they can prosecute under that is using a computer to perpetrate a crime. And really, they kind of geared that originally toward hackers. And, just I think it was this year. It was the beginning of this year or maybe the end of last. Obama just tightened laws in regards to terrorists. And remember, the internet is now a battlefield, and launching a cyber attack is an act of war. I mean, they've set this all up. So now they're using some of these cyber laws against whistleblowers. So there was this guy. Oh, God, I was doing so much yesterday. I'm trying to remember what the organization was. he had logged in to, was it a banking system? Or no, content management system. It was a CMS system at like the LA Times. And he was quitting, by the way. But there was some information on there, and he apparently knew some anonymous hackers and logged into the system and gave anonymous access, and they went in and they did some dumb things. They changed some content or whatever, but it wasn't anything major. But like now they want to go after this dude with these prison terms and whatever because he's a cyber hacker and he caused all these issues. And no, he actually was allowing corruption to get out, some information that should have been out as part of whistleblowing. And, he kind of just unlocked the door and turned his head the other direction. And now they're going after him and looking at putting him into prison for years under this law. This is really insane. And I mean, there was nobody hurt. There was no damage done. It was like a hijinks. They changed it on the page. Somebody got a little information, but nobody got hurt. It's a victimless crime. And we're going to be locking people up for 10 years. I mean, look at it. Aaron Schwartz, he let out information from a public university, even though it was paid subscription service for the studies or whatever, like he believed. It's research that is paid for a lot of times by private, by taxpayer dollars, especially at a public institution. And they were going to take him, and it was the same law that they were prosecuting Aaron Schwartz under. It was that cyber law. And it's got huge pointy teeth, so put on a seatbelt because that's the same law that they're looking at enacting as part of this U.S. copyright law. And it's not just going to apply, by the way, to copyrights on digital content. We're also going to look at the drug situation. You think that a prescription right now of name brand drugs is expensive, even with health insurance. Tier 1 drugs are like $100 copay. Just wait. All right, let's play the end of this. So let me just back it up a little bit. Doodle-doodle-doodle-doo-doo-doo. To the people sitting with flags behind them. All right, here we go.
Journalists and whistleblowers. But before all this is set in stone, all countries involved in the TPP agreement will have to ratify the deal. And that's where, according to Open Media and other companies involved in this letter to trade superiors, that's where the salvation may still come. With a heated debate between the societies and governments of those countries is looking almost inevitable.
Yeah.
RT reporting from Washington, D.C.
All right. Thank you, Igor. I like Igor. I think it's his accent. Here, we're gonna let's make everybody's stomach turn for this morning. Sorry, guys. We're gonna have to listen to good old Barry. We at least should kick it off with him announcing it. Here we go.
Yesterday, we announced a new trade agreement across the Asia-Pacific region that reflects American values and gives our working families and American businesses a fair shot, creates a level playing field. The Trans-Pacific Partnership took 5 years to negotiate, and I wanted to get the best possible deal done for American workers and American businesses, and that is what we have achieved.
The thing is the first story that I kind of breezed through, the 12-nation agreement. I can tell you right now, yes, there is a takeover of the police force nationwide. At least at a national level, I wouldn't doubt that, there's some ties to the UN. We know already that the New York Police Department has a branch in Israel, right? We know that all these international military forces do crossbreeding training. We see a really scary scenario brewing right now in Syria. I don't know if you guys heard, but last night before I went to bed, Pigmine informed me that in one of the videos he was uploading, they had talked about China now potentially getting involved in the Syria conflict. I don't know. I got to find that clip at some point today. I didn't see that one yet, but that's a really scary thought. If we have, and last night also, Russia started sea attacks using missiles out of the Caspian Sea, bombing the crap out of Syria. They got helicopters doing sorties, and I saw that they are looking at potentially also bringing, I think it was 150,000 troops was what the one article said, of Chechens down for ground offensive. So it is a very frightening situation. So we see that all spinning up over there, potential World War III. Oh, yes, and then there's all these stories about the FBI thwarted like 5 different times over the last few years. Russians, yes, of course, they had to blame it on the Russians because they're pretty pissed off about the Syria thing. Russians selling nuclear material to ISIS. So we had to make sure we stoked that story up good. So then when we shipped them over the borders, right, that's what they told us they were going to do in 2006, that the terrorists were going to come across the borders with suitcase nukes. Well, look we got migrants everywhere. It'll be plausible deniability, man. They can make it happen anytime, any day, and it doesn't have to be, it can be an orchestrated situation. Anyway, so let's listen to Obama's bullshit about how great the Trans-Pacific Partnership is going to be for you and me, selling out to the globalists.
This agreement makes us more competitive by eliminating about 18,000 tariffs that are placed on America's products in these other countries. Just to give you a couple examples, Japan puts a 38% tax on American beef before it ever reaches market. Malaysia currently puts a 30% tax on American auto parts. Vietnam puts a tax of as much as 70% on every car American automakers sell in Vietnam. Under this agreement, all those foreign taxes will fall. Most of them will fall to zero. So we are knocking down barriers that are currently preventing American businesses from selling in these countries and are preventing American workers from benefiting from those sales to the fastest growing, most dynamic region in the world.
Yes. It's all about making sure they get rid of all tariffs so we can sell more. And of course, that's going to help you. But no, it isn't, because a lot of these American companies aren't manufacturing any of this product in America. Okay? They're manufacturing it in China and want to ship it to Malaysia.
If the tariffs are down, if the taxes are down on goods made in America, that means U.S. companies that are investing here are able to sell over there without a disadvantage.
Yeah, well, I'd like to see a long list of products made in America, because there aren't too many. And, he gives like this one little window. Well, there's not going to be any tariffs, so it's going to be good for everybody. Well, how about the fact that we are going to have now even a bigger, badder World Trade Organization? We had, like I said, individual countries that want now reparations from the United States because they're claiming that they lost revenue because of our labeling laws. Well, here's the thing. That was through the World Trade Organization. It gets even better under the TPP. They can literally come in here. I'm going to try and disconnect, and hopefully this doesn't kill my call. They're going to be able to literally come in and force us to either buy or die. And if we don't buy, then, hey, they already have projections to make $10 million, let's say, this year in the United States. So pay up, buddy, because under our agreement with the TPP, we weren't able to sell things unfettered in your country, and we didn't sell as many as we thought we were going to. So we want you to make up the difference. I mean, there are lots of crazy laws in there. Well, so they say. It's not public, so who knows? It says TPP signed, the biggest global threat to the internet agreed, as campaigners warned that the secret pact could bring huge new restrictions to the internet. Actually, let's do this one by Derek Burrows out of Anti-Media. 12 nations agree to the controversial TPP down in Atlanta, Georgia. Australia, Brunei, Canada, Chile, Japan, ding ding, Malaysia, ding ding, Mexico, New Zealand, Peru, Singapore, and the United States, as well as Vietnam, are pleased to announce that we have successfully concluded the Trans-Pacific Partnership negotiations, stated the U.S. Trade Representative Michael Froman early Monday morning. The ministerial meeting in Atlanta was expected to conclude on Friday, but dragged into Monday morning because of disagreements on dairy products and pharmaceutical regulation. Oh, do you think the dairy product regulation could have had something to do with the fact that in almost 100% of all U.S. milk, we have bovine leukemia virus? I bet they won't make that public, and we'll look at the pharmaceutical regulation as well. And, I wonder, pharmaceutical regulation, yes, them putting nanotechnology and all kinds of RNAi crap and everything and releasing it as well, saying it's safe, that could have something to do with it also, since we are one of the only countries that is doing mass mega experimentation on its people. Maybe not one of the only, but probably the worst. We don't have human rights in this country. Or ethics. At a federal level. The controversial trade agreement must now be approved by the 12 individual nation states before it can officially become law. And in the United States, Obama must now wait a minimum of 90 days before signing the agreement. What is a cooling off period? And the full text. And so they're all saying the full text. The full text of the agreement must be made publicly available for at least 60 days. And I wonder if that's going to be on the internet or if that's going to be in a little viewing room underneath the Lincoln Memorial, This means that a congressional vote on the TPP will probably not likely happen before January, which is a good thing. Because they're going to go on vacation here. Remember, they get these nice extended long vacations. So holiday season's coming. That means the end of the session. But what's not good is that, we've worked up a frenzy and now everybody's going to forget about it again. This is President Obama promised that, quote, Congress and the American people will have months to read every word. That's what he said. But the thing is what? We're going to be able to read every word after they ink it? That's what hasn't been made very apparent to me, and I believe that it is after they ink it. Because currently, right now, before they ink it, it's classified. Congress and the American people, and remember, Congress is inking this too without reading it. Congress and the American people will have months to read every word, he says, and stated that passing the agreement can help our businesses sell more made in America goods and services around the world, and we can help more American workers compete and win. Yes, before the robots take over, which, don't worry about it. They're coming. In late June, and I know anyone who hasn't listened to the show before is probably like, wow, this girl is really messed up, but no, they are. Robots are going to take all of our jobs. In late June, President Obama signed into law the so-called fast-track bill, right? We talked about that. That was the TPA that set the stage for approval of the TPP. The fast-track bill, officially known as the Trade Promotion Authority, TPA, was one of the two bills signed by Obama. And the president also signed the Trade Adjustment Assistance Act, which is the TAA, aimed at extending aid to workers who might lose their jobs as a consequence of the TPP or other so-called free trade deals. Well, there you go. So why would they, and notice that didn't get a lot of play. I think we mentioned that briefly when we talked about the TPA going through. This is like this retraining bill. But why would they be adding a retraining bill? Because it's going to be the big sucking sound for jobs. Like I said, this isn't going to be good for anyone but the corporations, not for the American worker in any way, shape, or form, not the end user, not the computer user that's going to be under all kinds of new surveillance eyes and copyright laws and people, manufacturers, Microsoft in particular, but also Apple, being able to scan the contents of your computer and remove things on your hard drive that they believe are copyright infringements. That's all laid out. We looked at that in Windows 10, the licensing agreement, when that first rolled out, and you wonder why Microsoft has now converted 110 million people to Windows 10, because it's easy to spy on them. It's easy to do digital rights management because they built those tools right in. On Monday's press conference in Atlanta, the USTR Michael Froman discussed the expected benefits of approving the massive trade deal that affects 40% of the entire economy. We expect this agreement to promote economic growth, support higher paying jobs. Yeah, I'll believe that one. Maybe in Malaysia from 3 cents to 98 cents. Enhance innovation, productivity, and competitiveness. Raise living standards, again, not in the United States, in Malaysia it may. Reduce poverty in our countries, yes, in Malaysia. Promote transparency and governance and strong labor and environmental protections, again, in Malaysia and Vietnam. Critics, this is not good for us. It's good for all these other countries. We are selling anything that was left of the middle class is being sucked out and given now to third world nations. Critics say the agreements Investor State Dispute Settlement, ISDS, will give global corporations loopholes, and this is what we were talking about, to escape accountability. So, yeah, they don't have to be liable for many things, and they can go against your environmental laws if they're manufacturing in Vietnam, and then force you to buy their product here regardless of whether or not you agree with their environmental laws in their manufacturing facility in Vietnam. Says it also will empower international bodies overriding national sovereignty, ding, 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 of the signing nations. And that's what the last 2 days have been about, is overriding national sovereignty. And then it's coming at us from so many different directions. Under the ISDS, remember, we got to be good global citizens now. Under the ISDS, foreign corporations would be allowed to appeal legal decisions to international tribunals rather than face domestic courts. Critics fear that this could lead to a loss of sovereignty and the enrichment of transnational corporations. Of course it will be. It's going to be a kangaroo court. We found out yesterday, I mean, you want any proof that it's going to be a kangaroo court at the international level. We found out yesterday that the former head of the UN General Assembly, he actually, I heard that they went after him with charges, but they arrested him for corruption and bribery, and he took millions of dollars in bribes from China and got himself a new Rolex watch and a basketball court and some suits. And he sold the international institution for a few trinkets. You know, don't think that that's an isolated incident, and I guess there's a whole bunch more people that they're going after as well, so it should be interesting to keep an eye out on that. It says, in a recent statement, Obama did not address critics of the trade deal who believe it will erode the sovereignty of individual nation states. Instead, he took the opportunity to criticize the Republican Party. Of course he did. He said within the Republican Party, some of the same impulses that are anti-immigration reform, some of the same impulses that we see the entire world as a threat, and we've got to wall ourselves off. Some of those same impulses start creeping into the trade debate. Of course, anyone who's against any cockamamie idea that he comes up with is just a lunatic, and you must be a Republican because you don't see his liberal thinking, liberal controlled Manchurian candidate thinking at all. He says, and that party was traditionally pro-free trade, but they now have a substantial element that may feel differently, Obama stated. And that begs to question, if the Republicans were always so against or always so pro free trade. And I remember in the very beginning, I was really afraid that they were going to railroad this through because they really wanted it to go. And I figured, hey, probably all invested in these multinational corporations that are going to make bazillions of dollars anyway. So the fact that the Republicans are now standing up going, no, 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 yet nobody can read it. We can't read it. They haven't read it. It's got to make you raise an eyebrow. Love them or hate them. Whatever you think about them. Just the plain fact that the guys who are usually on board are standing up going, no way. It says before the conclusion of this trade deal, 15 different organizations signed an open letter asking TPP negotiators to provide public safeguards for copyrighted works. These groups included the Australian Digital Alliance, Consumer New Zealand, Copia Institute in the United States, Creative Commons, which that's what's going to bite us, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, Hyper Dorico, Futurist Tech Info, Global Exchange, the iFixit, New Media Rights, ONG Dorico, Open Media, Public Citizen, blah, blah, blah. I don't know who all these people are, but they're different organizations that I guess have some skin in the game for copyrights. The authors of this letter state the copyright restricts important everyday use of creative works, and the group calls on the negotiators to be open to new changes that require participating nations to develop balanced and flexible rules on copyright. And I'm telling you, this is where it's going to bite alternative media right in the ass and be able to shut everybody up. I really think that this is by design. You know, and I mean, when they can send someone to jail for playing copyrighted stuff, I obviously had looked at being a radio station owner. I was like, you know, people who insist on playing copyrighted works and bumpers and stuff get mad at me because I said, no way, but I've been watching this whole thing transpire for a couple years now. And I read about all of the new copyright teeth they wanted to give, and I most certainly don't want to get caught up in that. It says, the groups call on negotiators to be open to new changes that require participating nations to develop balanced and flexible rules on copyrights. The letter also highlights 4 key concerns from the organizations: retroactive copyright term extension, a ban on circumvention of technology protection measures. So a ban on circumvention of technology prevention methods. So, you know, there's always workarounds on the internet, right? I mean, when they block something, there's a lot of us out there that are pretty good to find alternative ways to get things we want. And that would make that fully 100% illegal. Heavy-handed criminal penalties and civil damages, as well as trade secret rules that could criminalize investigative journalism and whistleblowers reporting on corporate wrongdoing. As the EFF writes, despite its earlier promises that the TPP would bring greater balance to copyright more than any other recent trade agreement, the most recent leak of intellectual property belies their claims. The U.S. trade representatives have still failed to live up to its word that it would enshrine meaningful public rights to use copyrighted content in this agreement. Oh, how interesting. Before the bombing of Doctors Without Borders, because the story was from Monday, Doctors Without Borders stood up following the conclusion of the negotiation and made some comments. Wow, I wonder if anyone caught this. Doctors Without Borders released a statement following the conclusion of the negotiations. Doctors Without Borders expresses its dismay that TPP countries have agreed to the United States government and multinational drug companies' demands that will raise the price of medicines for millions by unnecessarily extending monopolies and further delaying price-lowering generic competition. And yes, they want to extend the life of drug patents for drug companies internationally So I don't know, it was like 5 years or 10 years with the current patent limit is before they can start producing, third party countries can start producing generic drugs, but they want to extend it to like 20, which, will allow them to scalp prices. We saw that one life-saving drug. Oh, look at everything lock up. That one life-saving drug that guy bought the rights to, and then he raised it 1,800% for the price. I mean, there's no laws against that. Charge whatever you want. Woo! It's consumeristic society. It's called capitalism. Who cares if little girls are dying? It is just disgusting. And that's what these international pharmaceutical corporations want to do across the board. This is the big losers in the TPP. This is continuing for Doctors Without Borders. Are patients and treatment providers in developing countries. And although the text has improved over the initial demands, the TPP will still go down in history as the worst trade agreement for access to medicine in developing countries. And hey, even in the United States, after they fucked up the entire healthcare insurance system. And not that it was perfect before, but at least we all had some sort of control over what we were being given. Now it's being forced down our throats, and who even knows where that's at right now? I mean, it was a cluster F to begin with, and I don't think it ever got really straightened out. TPP will go down in history as the worst trade agreement for access to medicines in developing countries, which will be forced to change their laws to incorporate abusive intellectual property protections for pharmaceutical companies. Now, when you hear that, and this story came out on Monday, and what day did Doctors Without Borders have the crap bombed out of them in Afghanistan, even continuing for an hour after they had called and informed somebody that they were a hospital that was being bombed? It's really got to make you wonder. Now, you guys are going to have to hold on 1 second. Again, how interesting. I'm trying to get to the story about the pharmaceuticals, and everything is going into flash crash right now, which that seems to be, flash, the big gaping hole in your browser. Oh, here we go. That we found out they've been using for quite a number of years to put backdoor bugs in your machine. Yeah, that flash. All right, here it is. If I can, don't move. I want to click on you. Everything is like syrup now. Oh, we got the about blank. It's thinking about it. It's thinking about it. Let's cross our fingers. We don't want to get that DNS website not found. It's thinking about it. Thinking. Oh, wait, I see a title. And this literally is how slow my internet is out here now. And trust me, it didn't used to be like this. All right. How the Trans-Pacific Partnership could drive up the cost of medication worldwide. After nearly 8 years of negotiation, the U.S. and 11 other countries have finally reached consensus on the TPP. It says, through the text of the final agreement, the TPP will drive up costs for some of the most expensive drugs on the market in the poorest countries. One of the biggest sticking points in the negotiation had to do with the data protection for biologic drugs. Biologics are treatments made from biological sources such as, vaccines, antitoxins, proteins, and monoclonal bodies for everything from Ebola to cancer. Well, how amazing. It's the same mad science gone mad that we've been talking about. So that makes a lot of sense now. Let's take all of our really expensive mad science gone mad drugs that we've made and make sure we keep a copyright on them as long as possible, because we're going to make bazillions of dollars with precision medicine. We're selling it to rich people. So don't worry, you poor people. You don't deserve the cure to cancer. As the Brookings Institution explains, yes, it's such an authority, biologics are much more structurally complex than regular small molecule drugs and are therefore more difficult and expensive to make, costing on average 22 times more than non-biologic drugs, like the way they call it biologics. Yeah, biologics called DNA and RNA and protein. I mean, this is the stuff that's going to be messing all the mad science vaccines that we've been talking about. Because of the high prices of these drugs, companies are very interested in developing biosimilars, cheaper copies of the original drugs. Not sure if I would trust a generic DNA vaccine. They're going to use pig DNA versus some sort of, well, I guess it doesn't matter. They've been using all kinds of crazy animals also. Freaking mouse ovaries. Biosimilars, cheaper copies of original drugs similar to generic versions of pharmaceuticals. The reason these biosimilars are so cheap is that manufacturers can just rely on data from clinical trials submitted by the maker of the original biologic, but of course the maker of the original drug doesn't want everyone using his data and making cheap knockoffs. And yeah, the scary part is just like, you know, an apple is an apple is an apple, or a potato is a potato is a potato, with their flawed logic as to why GMOs apparently must be safe. Because nothing changed. We just put all the synthetic crap in there. Well, they've done, and we haven't done any testing. We just assume that it's safe. They've done the same thing with generic drugs. As long as the generic drug manufacturer says that it's the same chemical composition as the original drug, it's like rubber stamped by the FDA as a cheap alternative. So, I don't know. You know, they've also found when they've done testing that generic drugs do not have the same efficacy as name brand drugs. So not that I'm standing up for biopharma, but at least you know that there's some sort of formula that they have to stick to per their copyright. Anyway, as part of the TPP, the United States and the pharmaceutical lobby has been pushing hard to get every country to agree on 12, so it wasn't 20, 12 years of data protection for biologics, and the final agreement falls somewhere in between, with a period of data exclusivity from at least 5 to 8 years, according to the New York Times. And guys, that's the last 5 seconds of the show. My God. So make sure you stick around. It's Thursday, so we have Mr. Kevin Blanche up next, and then at 7 p.m. Eastern, Game On with Ron Stevens. This week's Hal Anthony at 8 p.m. Eastern, Double Cross with Chuck at 10 and 11, SM Gibson with Anti-Media Radio. All right, guys, I will catch up with you on Monday. Everybody, take care.